The air on Oak Island was heavy that evening, filled with the scent of wet soil and sea breeze. Machines roared, lights flickered, and everyone's eyes were fixed on one point, the excavation pit that had been dug deeper than ever before. Rick Lagina stood near the edge, his boots covered in mud, his face showing both fatigue and anticipation. For years, he had chased legends and rumors about treasure buried beneath this mysterious island, but that night, something felt different. The scanners were giving off readings no one had seen before. Beside him, Emma Culligan and Dr. Spooner exchanged tense looks. The radar was showing strange pulses, lines moving erratically, almost as if the Earth itself was alive. Emma looked at the screen again and said quietly, "Rick, this signal, it's not metal, it's energy." Rick leaned forward, his brow furrowing. "Energy?" he asked, his voice low. "What kind of energy?" Dr. Spooner wiped his glasses and said, "Something old or something advanced. Either way, it shouldn't be here." The excavator continued digging, layer after layer of dirt being removed, the ground trembling slightly under the machine's force. Everyone watched in silence. The only sounds were the rumbling of the digger and the whirring of the monitoring equipment. Then suddenly, a faint glow began to appear from beneath the soil. Not the glint of gold or silver, but a soft blue light that shimmered and pulsed like a heartbeat. Emma gasped. "Stop!" she shouted, waving her hand. The machines halted, and for a moment, everything went quiet. Rick stepped closer, his flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. Beneath the earth, half buried in the mud, was a metallic surface, smooth, polished, and glowing faintly. Dust still covered parts of it, but even through the dirt, the light was visible. Dr. Spooner moved closer and held out a thermal reader. The numbers on the screen began to climb rapidly. "Rick," he said, his voice shaking, "this thing isn't cold. It's hot. It's heating up." Rick stared at the glowing metal and whispered, "That's not possible. It's been buried for centuries." As if alive. A quiet vibration passed through the ground, subtle but strong enough that everyone felt it in their feet. The camera crew looked at each other nervously. One of them whispered, "It's like the ground is breathing." Rick didn't answer. He simply kept staring, his face pale. Then, almost without thinking, he said softly, "We've found it." No one spoke for several seconds. The wind rustled through the trees and the faint hum of energy grew louder. Emma slowly stood up, looking at Rick with a mix of fear and awe. "Rick," she said, "whatever this is, it's not just an artifact." Rick nodded slowly, his eyes still locked on the glowing surface. "I know," he said. "It's something else." The ground vibrated again, stronger this time, and small ripples appeared in the puddles of water nearby. A low humming tone filled the air, deep and steady, like a pulse from beneath the earth. Dr. Spooner's instruments began to flicker, the readings on the screen jumping wildly. "The frequency's changing," he muttered. "It's reacting to us." Rick took a step back, glancing at his crew. "Everyone move back," he ordered. Slowly. But before anyone could react, the ground gave off a sharp crack, like rock splitting under pressure. A beam of faint blue light shot upward for a brief second, illuminating the area around them. The team shielded their eyes. When the light faded, the hum stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Emma whispered, "Rick, what just happened?" Rick shook his head slowly. "I don't know," he said, "but whatever's down there, it's awake now." They decided to pause the digging until morning, but Rick couldn't sleep that night. He sat near the excavation site, watching the faint glow that still came from the hole. It wasn't bright, just enough to see, like a candle under water. The night was cold, but Rick felt warmth radiating from the ground. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. When the first rays of dawn touched the island, the team returned, ready to continue.
Cameras were rolling again, capturing every moment. Emma checked her equipment, and her face went pale. "Rick," she said quietly, "the signal's stronger. It's spreading." Rick frowned. "Spreading? How?" Dr. Spooner replied, "It's like it's sending out waves, energy pulses every few minutes."
More soil until the entire object was visible. It was about the size of a large chest, made of some unknown metal, smooth and flawless. The symbols engraved on it pulsed faintly with blue light, and the surface was warm to the touch. Rick crouched down, inches away from it. "I've never seen anything like this," he said. Emma nodded. "Neither have I. It's not from any known period or civilization." Dr. Spooner was scanning it again when his instrument suddenly began to beep rapidly. "Rick," he said urgently, "the temperature's rising again." The team stepped back as steam began to rise from the soil around the object. The air grew heavy, filled with a faint humming sound that grew louder by the second. The ground beneath them seemed to tremble again. Then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The hum faded. The heat disappeared. The box lay still and silent, its glow dimming slightly. Everyone stood frozen, unsure what to do next. Rick finally said, "We need to get it out." The crew carefully attached straps around the object, lifting it slowly with the crane. As it rose from the ground, a gust of wind swept across the site, as if the island itself was exhaling. The cameras captured the moment, the glowing box rising out of the earth after centuries of mystery. Rick looked at it with awe. "This," he whispered, "changes everything." But the excitement didn't last long. Within an hour, something strange happened. The machines began malfunctioning. Cameras flickered, microphones stopped working, and the monitors displayed static. Emma tapped her screen, frustrated. "All systems are glitching," she said. "I don't understand." Dr. Spooner frowned. "It's like an electromagnetic interference," he said, "but stronger than anything I've ever recorded." Rick looked at the glowing box and said softly, "It's coming from that thing." The glow pulsed once more, and suddenly, all the lights around the site went out. The entire area was plunged into darkness. Only the box remained glowing faintly, casting eerie shadows across the ground. Then came the sound. A deep, low hum that grew louder until it felt like it was inside their heads. Emma covered her ears. "Rick, we have to shut it down!" But there was nothing to shut down. The box continued to hum, the light growing brighter and brighter until it filled the entire pit with a blinding blue glow. Then, just as suddenly, it went dark again. The hum stopped. Silence returned. Rick's voice broke the stillness. "Everyone okay?" he asked. Slowly, people nodded. But before anyone could say more, headlights appeared in the distance. Trucks, black, unmarked, were approaching fast. The vehicles stopped near the site, and men in black suits stepped out. Their faces were unreadable. One of them walked straight to Rick and said, "You need to leave the area immediately. This site is now under government jurisdiction." Rick stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about? This is our dig." The man's expression didn't change. "It's classified now," he said firmly. "You and your team will hand over all equipment, footage, and samples." Within minutes, the entire area was cordoned off. Cameras were seized, drives removed, and workers pushed back. Rick tried to argue, but it was useless. The men worked efficiently, removing the box and loading it into a heavy metal container. Emma stood frozen, whispering, "They're taking it." Dr. Spooner looked defeated. "It's gone," he said softly. By nightfall, the trucks had disappeared, leaving only tire marks and silence behind. The next morning, when Rick and his team checked their computers, they found that most of their footage was gone. Files had been deleted automatically, and even the backup drives were corrupted. When they tried to recover the data, only fragments of video remained.
flashes of blue light and distorted audio filled with that same deep, humming sound. Rick stared at the screen and said quietly, "It's starting again."
I've checked everything. The data's gone. All the readings, all the footage, even the backups. It's like they were never recorded. Dr. Spooner added, "It's not just deletion, it's corruption. The files are unreadable, but they weren't deleted by human hands. The system logs show some kind of automatic overwrite." Rick turned to face them, his expression hard to read. "So it wasn't an accident," he said slowly. Emma shook her head. "No, it was deliberate." Later that day, the production team gathered in the small cabin where they usually reviewed footage. The atmosphere was heavy. Everyone had questions, but no one had answers. An editor opened one of the few remaining clips. The screen flickered, showing a few seconds of the glowing box being lifted out of the ground, then static. The next frame showed only darkness, and a faint, rhythmic hum played through the speakers. It was the same sound they had heard that night. Dr. Spooner leaned forward and whispered, "That's the same frequency, the same resonance." Rick clenched his jaw. "It's like it's still here," he said softly. As word of the sudden shutdown spread, social media exploded. Fans of the show filled the internet with questions and theories. Some said the discovery had been so shocking that the government had stepped in. Others believed the object was something dangerous, something not meant for public eyes. Theories ranged from ancient Templar relics to alien technology buried for centuries. Hashtags like Oak Island Truth and Season 12 Cancelled began trending worldwide. But amid all the noise, one question stood out above the rest. What did they find that made them stop everything? A few days later, a journalist tried to contact the team for an interview, but Rick refused to speak. He only released a short statement saying the excavation is paused indefinitely. No further comment. The words were simple, but they raised even more questions. People wanted answers, but none came. Even the History Channel issued only a brief note, saying production was temporarily halted due to unforeseen circumstances. The mystery deepened. Meanwhile, strange things began happening around Oak Island. Locals who lived near the area reported seeing a faint blue glow coming from the restricted zone at night. Some said they heard low humming sounds carried by the wind, the same kind of vibration the team had heard during the dig. One fisherman told a local paper, "At night, it feels like the island's alive. The ground hums like it's breathing." Most dismissed these stories as superstition, but for those who had been there, it was too real to ignore. Rick couldn't shake the feeling that the box, whatever it was, hadn't really left. One evening, he returned alone to the edge of the site, despite the warning signs that had been placed all around it. The metal fences bore the words "restricted area, no entry," but he stood just outside them, staring into the darkness. The air felt heavy, charged with some invisible energy. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a flicker of blue light between the trees, faint but unmistakable. He whispered to himself, "You're still here, aren't you?" The next morning, Emma and Dr. Spooner met Rick again in secret. They had managed to recover a small fragment of the corrupted footage, just a few seconds long, but enough to see something shocking. The image was grainy, distorted by static, but visible in the frame was the box, and on its surface faint symbols were glowing in a circular pattern. They weren't random. They seemed to pulse in rhythm, like a heartbeat. Emma zoomed in and noticed something even stranger. The symbols were changing shape, rearranging themselves into patterns that looked almost like letters. Not English, not Latin, but something else entirely. "It's like a code," she said quietly, "a language." Dr. Spooner adjusted the playback, slowing it down frame by frame. "Look," he said, pointing to one part of the footage. "There, it's emitting energy waves. You can see the distortion around it." The team exchanged uneasy glances. "If this thing was buried for centuries," Emma said, "why was it still active? Why was it still generating energy?"
Rick looked at the footage again, his face pale. Because it wasn't buried to be forgotten. It was buried to be contained. From that day onward, everything changed. Rick became distant, speaking little and spending long hours alone. Marty tried to get him to talk, but he only said, "Some things shouldn't be unearthed."
Emma and Dr. Spooner tried to publish some of their scientific findings, but they were quickly silenced. Government officials warned them that the data was classified. Even emails and online backups began disappearing mysteriously. Within weeks, their research was gone from every record. It was as if the discovery had been erased from existence. But the story didn't end there. A few weeks later, a leaked photo began circulating online. It showed what looked like a thermal scan, a bright, glowing cube deep beneath the surface, surrounded by waves of heat. The caption read, "Oak Island, Restricted Zone." Some said it was fake. Others swore it was real. The image spread quickly, reigniting the mystery. People began saying the artifact hadn't been destroyed or hidden. It had been moved. Dr. Spooner was one of the first to comment privately to Emma. "If that image is real," he said, "then we know one thing. It's still active." Emma nodded slowly. "And if it's active," she said, "then it's communicating." Rick heard about the photo but didn't respond. He knew that even if the world saw glimpses of the truth, they would never understand the danger. Rumors began to surface that Rick had made a secret backup of the data before the government's arrival, a small drive containing the energy readings, frequency charts, and part of the radar scans. Some claimed he had hidden it somewhere safe, away from everyone. Others said he destroyed it to protect his team. No one knew the truth. Months passed. Oak Island was sealed off completely. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, and drones flew overhead to prevent trespassing. Locals said that every few nights, the island would glow faintly blue just for a few seconds before going dark again. Scientists who tried to study the phenomenon from afar found strange electromagnetic spikes in their readings, always coming from the same spot. Then a discovery changed everything again. A historian found an old Templar map dated to the 1600s. On it was a symbol, a large cross, and underneath, in faded ink, the words, "The final chamber lies beneath the cross." When experts compared the map to Oak Island's layout, they realized that the excavation site where Rick and his team had found the glowing box was directly beneath Nolan's Cross, a formation of stones on the island long believed to hold meaning. Everything matched perfectly. Rick had always believed Nolan's Cross wasn't random, and now he knew he had been right. Emma and Dr. Spooner studied the map and overlaid it digitally with satellite images. Every line, every mark, pointed to the exact same spot, the place where the box had been found. Emma whispered, "This was planned centuries ago. Someone knew it was there." The realization sent chills through the room. "The Templars hid it," Dr. Spooner said, "and maybe they sealed it for a reason." Rick said nothing. He only stared at the map, his thoughts miles away. More ancient texts surfaced, some referring to an artifact called the Light of God, a relic said to hold divine power, capable of both creation and destruction. Legends said the Templars protected it, fearing it could bring ruin if misused. Rick began to wonder if that was what they had unearthed. "Maybe," he said quietly one night, "we didn't find treasure. Maybe we found a warning." Even after the island was sealed, the mystery wouldn't die. New footage leaked online, showing a faint glowing symbol burned into the ground near the excavation site, the same curved pattern that had appeared on the box. People began calling it the Mark of the Light. Experts tried to dismiss it as a hoax, but no one could explain how the symbol kept reappearing, glowing faintly under moonlight and vanishing by dawn. Rick withdrew from the public eye. In one rare interview, when asked if he regretted the discovery, he paused for a long time before saying, "Some secrets are meant to stay buried." His eyes were tired, but there was something else behind them, a quiet sadness, as if he had seen something he could never forget. One by one,
The team members went their separate ways. Emma focused on her research, though much of her data was gone. Dr. Spooner quietly retired, refusing to discuss Oak Island ever again. Marty tried to keep their work alive,